I think the girl who is able to earn her own living and pay her own way should be as happy as anybody on earth. The sense of independence and security is very sweet. Woman must not depend upon the protection of man, but must be taught to protect herself. I distrust those people who know so well what God wants them to do, because I notice it always coincides with their own desires. Forget conventionalisms. Forget what the world thinks of you stepping out of your place. Think your best thoughts. Speak your best words. Work your best works, looking to your own conscience for approval. I was a born heretic. I always distrusted people who knew so much about what God wants them to do to their fellows. There will never be complete equality until women themselves help to make laws and elect lawmakers. I declare to you that woman must not depend upon the protection of man, but must be taught to protect herself. And there I take my stand. Failure is impossible. It was we, the people, not we, the white male citizens, nor yet we, the male citizens, but we, the whole people, who formed the Union. Men, their rights, and nothing more. Women, their rights, and nothing less. There shall never be another season of silence until women have the same rights men have on this green earth. Every woman should have money of her own. I pray every single moment of my life, not on my knees, but with my work. My prayer is to lift women to equality with men. Work and worship are one with me. Our job is not to make young women grateful. It is to make them ungrateful so they keep going. Gratitude never radicalized anybody. Resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. The worst enemy women have is in the pulpit. The women of this nation in 1876 have greater cause for discontent, rebellion, and revolution than the men of 1776. Let me tell you what I think of bicycling. I think it has done more to emancipate women than anything else in the world. I stand and rejoice every time I see a woman ride by on a wheel. Independence is happiness. I don't want to die as long as I can work. The minute I cannot, I want to go. What you should do is to say to outsiders that a Christian has neither more nor less rights in our association than an atheist. Wherever, on the face of the globe or on the page of history, you show me a disenfranchised class, I will show you a degraded class of labor. Whoever controls work and wages controls morals. It is a poor rule that won't work more ways than one. I beg you to speak of the woman as you do the Negro. Speak of her as a human being, as a citizen of the United States, as a half of the people in whose hands lies the destiny of this nation. For every betrayed woman, there is always the betrayer, man. To think, I have had more than 60 years of hard struggle for a little liberty, and then to die without it seems so cruel. A woman should have a purse of her own, and how can this be so long as the law denies to the wife all right to both the individual and joint earnings? Being persons, then, women are citizens, and no state has a right to make any new law or to enforce any old law that shall abridge their privileges or immunities. This is rather different from the receptions I used to get 50 years ago. They threw things at me then, but they were not roses. We throw to the winds that old dogma that governments can give rights. Before governments were organized, no one denies that each individual possessed the right to protect his own life, liberty, and property. The only question left to be settled now is, are women persons? And I hardly believe any of our opponents will have the hardihood to say they are not. If all the rich and all of the church people should send their children to public schools, they would feel bound to concentrate their money on improving these schools until they met the highest ideals. I shall earnestly and persistently continue to urge all women to the practical recognition of the old revolutionary maxim: resistance to tyranny is obedience to God. You would better educate 10 women into the practice of liberal principles than to organize 1,000 on a platform of intolerance and bigotry. There is not a woman born who desires to eat the bread of dependence. I have given my life and all I am to it, and now I want my last act to be to give it all I have to the last cent. Organize, agitate, educate must be our war cry. I do not consider divorce an evil by any means. It is just as much a refuge for women married to brutal men as Canada was to the slaves of brutal masters. White men have always controlled their wives' wages. Colored men were not able to do so until they themselves became free. Then they owned both their wives and their own wages. The work of woman is not to lessen the severity or the certainty of the penalty for the violation of moral law, but to prevent this violation by the removal of the causes which lead to it. Modern invention has banished the spinning wheel, and the same law of progress makes the woman of today a different woman from her grandmother. Suffrage is the pivotal right. Here, in this very first paragraph of the Declaration, is the assertion of the natural right of all to the ballot. For how can the consent of the governed be given if the right to vote be denied? Join the union, girls, and together we say, equal pay for equal work. Cautious, careful people, always casting about to preserve their reputations, can never effect a reform. No man is good enough to govern any woman without her consent. Marriage, to women as to men, must be a luxury, not a necessity, an incident of life, not all of it. No self-respecting woman should wish to work for the success of a party who ignores her sex. Oh, if I could but live another century and see the fruition of all the work for women. There is so much yet to be done. Trust me that as I ignore all laws to help the slave, so will I ignore it all to protect an enslaved woman. It is downright mockery to talk to women of their enjoyment of the blessings of liberty, while they are denied the use of the only means of securing them, provided by this democratic Republican government, the ballot. I have encountered riotous mobs and have been hung in effigy, but my motto is, men's rights are nothing more, women's rights are nothing less. I will cut off this right arm of mine, before I will ask for the ballot for the Negro and not for the woman. The older I get, the greater power I seem to have to help the world. I'm like a snowball. The further I am rolled, the more I gain. Women, we might as well be dogs, baying the moon, as petitioners without the right to vote. She who succeeds in gaining the mastery of the bicycle will gain mastery of life. The principle of self-government cannot be violated with impunity. The individual's right to it is sacred, regardless of class, caste, race, color, sex, or any other accident or incident of birth. I do not demand equal pay for any woman, save those who do equal work in value. Scorn to be coddled by your employers. Make them understand that you are in their service as workers, not as women. The day must be approaching when the whole world will recognize woman as the equal of man. It was we, the whole people, who formed the Union, and we formed it not to give the blessings of liberty, but to secure them, not to the half of ourselves and the half of our posterity, but to the whole people, women as well as men. Are you going to cater to the whims and prejudices of people? We draw out from other people our own thought. If, when you go out to organize, you go out with a broad spirit, you will create a call out of breath and toleration. An oligarchy of race, where the Saxon rules the African, could hardly be endured. But this oligarchy of sex, which makes father, brothers, husband, sons, the oligarchs over the mother and sisters, the wife and daughters of every household, carries discord and rebellion into every home of the nation. The Declaration of Independence, the United States Constitution, the constitutions of several states, and the organic laws of the territories, all alike propose to protect the people in the exercise of their God-given rights. Not one of them pretends to bestow rights. If women will not accept marriage with subjugation, nor men prefer it without, there can be no alternative. The woman who will not be ruled must live without marriage, and during this transition period, single women make comfortable and attractive homes for themselves. No one can doubt that the sufferings of the sober, virtuous woman in legal subjugation to the mastership of a drunken, immoral husband and father over herself and children, not only from physical abuse, but from spiritual shame and humiliation, must be such as the man himself cannot possibly comprehend.